to welcome you to this InnoAgora Talk. The name of the talk is Marketing Strategy and Why It's So Important. This is an InnoAgora Talk, so we are organizing it in the context of InnoAgora, the matchmaking platform that the Hellenic Development Bank, HDB, has created in order to bring together and closer enterprises and investors and supporting mechanisms. And we're very excited to welcome today some representatives of Ogilvy, one of the biggest marketing agencies in Greece and in the world. We're very happy that they're going to present today and give us their input on how important the marketing strategy is. So I'd like to start with Ms. Belibassaki to say hi and to make an introduction, and then we can move on.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lena, and thank you, InnoAgora, for giving us this great opportunity to meet you and to present you the way we think marketing works as a growth accelerator of your businesses. I hope you will find this webinar interesting and helpful to your businesses and plans. A few words for us. We are Ogilvy, the largest and most awarded communication agency in Greece. It's a global agency. Our presence in Greece counts more than 40 years. And having a tough vision that's supposed to inspire brands and people to impact the world, we are striving every day to meet our scope and to develop great messages and great advertising so as to boost the businesses. Today, we have the honor to present to you how we believe that marketing can work, as I told you before, as a growth accelerator of your businesses. And with absolutely no willingness to stall this presentation, I will pass on the microphone to Nikolas Kalaskanis, our principal consultant here at Ogilvy Greece, to take you through the presentation. Thank you so much.
So, hello.
Super. Sorry, just a short comment before we start. Everybody, you can write down your questions that you have during the presentation. And then when Mr. Kalaskanis is done, you can write the questions in the chat, or we can open up the microphone so you can ask any questions that you have. You're more than welcome to contribute and to engage in any way. I'm sorry, Mr. Kalaskanis, you can go on.
No worries. Hello, everybody. I'm just started sharing my screen. Just give me a heads up in case you are able to see it, because I cannot.
Yep.
I can no longer see you anymore. But I will just crack in. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a warm Tuesday afternoon here in Athens. It's a real pleasure being here with you to talk about the role of marketing. A big thanks to Hellenic Development Bank and the people in InnoAgora for giving us this opportunity to talk about marketing today. This is a sort of webinar that by no means is going to be exhaustive of all things marketing, but what I hope to do is eventually to inspire and help you to start approaching and implementing a more marketing mindset in your efforts to actually come up with great ideas and create great businesses. Our role as Ogilvy Consulting in Greece, but also within the Ogilvy network globally, is to advise and guide our clients to identify growth opportunities and to plan the right marketing strategies to seize them. Very often, it's also our role to help them tackle difficult problems and challenges that relate to their markets, to their customers, to the future of their brands and businesses. And when it comes to Greece specifically, now established services and products like Box food delivery app or the Hellmann's range of local sauces started off in our desks as rough blueprints of ideas, which we have helped clients develop and launch as full-fledged and successful market propositions in the Greek market. We are proud and fortunate enough to operate within the world's biggest creative network, Ogilvy, founded by the legendary David Ogilvy above in 1948, is today one of the biggest and more awarded agencies in the world, serving clients of a global caliber like the ones you've seen before. The Greek operation, as Lena said, counts more than 40 years of history, being the biggest and most awarded Greek ad agency, serving key clients and creating marketing strategies and communications for companies like Cosmote, Aegean, Eurobank, Nescafe, Lafta, IKEA, and so on and so forth. So I would like to crack on with a short story, and this is an interesting story because it's one of the few stories, according to the anecdotes, that Steve Jobs admitted that he was wrong. So the story goes like this. Steve Jobs was creating a 30-second commercial to officially launch the iPad. So he instructed his marketing team that there were 5 key messages that he needed to get across to the audience. The marketing team says 5 is too many. Let's focus on one message. But Steve insisted, says no, it has to be 5 messages. At this point, someone from the marketing team crushed 5 sheets of paper into little balls, said cuts to Steve as he threw all the 5 balls at once to Steve. As you might expect, Steve got none of these pieces of paper. So the guy says, that's what happens when you throw 5 things at someone at once. So the same guy then crushed a single sheet of paper and threw it at Steve again, saying cuts. Steve caught it this time. And so the guy says, that's what happens when you deliver one key message, Steve. And apparently, the story goes, this is one of the very few times Steve Jobs said, you're right, I am wrong. So this is really a presentation about what is the one ball that you need to throw. Because think about it, when you're reaching out to your investors and your prospects, do you try to sell too much at once? Are you drowning them with informations and features, or you focus on the one thing that makes the biggest difference? Besides the what is your idea and how it works, have you figured out the why? What is the need and the value proposition of this idea? This is what marketing is about. Marketing is about figuring out the real why that will build a market and will build and you enable you to build your offering and your strategy around it. This is what I'm going to talk about, the one ball that you need to throw. First things first, why marketing? Marketing is essential for businesses because it does 3 critical things. It generates markets, it cultivates trust, and it attracts attention. And also I would say, or I should say, that marketing is not only advertising. Advertising is a very powerful weapon that marketing has, but marketing goes way before and way after advertising. So let's take it from the start. There are many definitions about what is marketing. Let us stick here in what marketing is in its most essential and basic form. What directly stems from the name itself. Marketing generates markets. That's why it exists. This is why what the father of modern management, Peter Drucker, meant by this famous quote, which is very relevant up to this day. The purpose of the business, of any business, is to create a customer. Remember, an idea to become a business, this happens only when we figure out a way to monetize it. And this means that you have identified the market, you have found a way to engage a potential customer, and you have figured out the business model. How are you going to make money? Marketing and innovation, that is. Now, creating a customer is not an easy task. It's something that we know, that you know, that everybody knows. It is well known that innovation is notoriously tricky. Almost 90% of all innovations fail. And this is true not only for startups, but also for innovations from big established corporations and brands. What is more important here is that 42% that diagnoses as the key reason for startup failure the misreading of market demand. What this figure tells is that often startups fail not due to lack of funding, but due to their lack of marketing mindset and strategy. They fail to identify demand, they fail to identify a market for their products. So this is function number 1 for marketing. So assuming that you have identified a market gap or opportunity and you have developed a great solution, how do you get your prospects to trust you? This is the second essential function of marketing, which is about cultivating trust. Now, trust is a deeply human need, and it's also the foundational element of any successful product, service, or brand. Trust is built by assuring your potential customer into thinking and feeling that your offering will deliver its promise every time. Trust is often accomplished when you establish that your offering is seen as a good choice by other like-minded customers. Finally, in markets, sorry, have you lost me?
Yeah, but we can hear you now again.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry for this. It's a network, I guess. Finally, in markets where purchase decisions are critical, like B2B, trust is about building a reputation, as this classic ad from the 50s cleverly demonstrates. I don't know if you can see it. The guy says, I don't know who you are, I don't know your company, I don't know your product, what do you stand for, your company's customers, your record, your reputation. Now, what was it that you wanted to sell me? This is a kind of gloomy and sharp and slightly cynical way to establish why trust is so important. Now, on top of that, the pace of technological innovation today poses an additional challenge to building trust. Quite simply, today, technology is moving faster than people. Consider this. The number of US patent applications in 2020 alone was 3 times bigger than the number of applications submitted in the entire 19th century. So this is a huge acceleration of technologies and ideas. It is worth noting that as humans, we are not hardwired for continuous change. Our default mode is stability and ease. This is how our brain wants to make decisions. Hence, cultivating trust in a vastly changing environment is a very strong challenge. So, in a complex and a vastly changing world, the role of marketing is to simplify choice by building trust. And this is the essential role of brands. And we'll talk more about this in a while. Which leads us to the third aspect of marketing, which is also the one that is most directly linked to advertising. Marketing attracts attention. It is estimated that our average attention span today as humans is about 6 to 7 seconds, and it diminishes with time. In effect, what this means when it comes to noticing and remembering things, we are no better than goldfish. Like goldfish, you know, our attention continuously shifting from one thing to another. Consider how you browse the internet through your laptop, or how you scroll content on your mobile screen. How much of what was actually on screen can you recall? What about the ads on the side, the pop-up videos, the calls to action? The thing is that in the era before digital media, the biggest challenge for brands and products was how to feature in traditional media, how to get on TV, on radio, and so on and so forth. As soon as you could pay your way through mass media, you could rest assured that you would cut through, because that media were scarce and expensive, but they would give you all the attention that you needed. Today, the media are vast and plenty, and entry costs much lower, especially in the digital domain. So it's much easier to advertise, but it's much more difficult to get noticed, because today there is media abundance, but people's attention is scarce. So a media-rich, attention-poor economy provides much more opportunity and a lower cost of entry for new businesses to market themselves, but it requires more strategic consideration on where, when, to whom, how, in order to make it work. In a word, it requires a marketing plan. Some of you may be at a very early stage of a new business idea. Some others may have gone further down the line with an early proposition in the market. Regardless of where you are, you need to be able to reflect and consider 3 questions. How do you find your market? How do you start building trust? How do you attract attention? I'll walk you through some of the essential considerations you need to take into account. Some of these steps you might take alone, while for some others you may ask for expert consultancy now or later. It really depends on your phase, your resources, and your capability. But just remember this, a compelling marketing strategy will put you in a much better place when pitching your idea to potential investors. The first consideration is to establish whether your idea has the potential to be a business idea. Remember, an idea becomes a business idea when you have identified the market, have identified the customer, and have figured out a way to monetize it. So who is the idea for? What market gap or opportunity have you identified? This is really about finding your sweet spot. Some ideas start off as tech innovations looking for a market application. They start from the product, as we say, an idea looking for a market. Some others spark from a good understanding of a specific market gap or a known customer pain point. So this is like a problem looking for a solution. No matter what the starting point, you should be able to connect your idea to a potential customer need to have a business case hypothesis. because the foundation of any good business idea is an innovative solution addressing an unmet customer need by offering new gains or by relieving known gains. There are some key watch-outs that you have to avoid or to deal with during that process. One is make sure that you understand your user and your market. Poor or partial understanding of the user of the market often creates gaps. Second, make sure that you understand the competition, the competitive options, and depending on what kind of category your idea is this for, this may be a very straightforward answer, but in other cases, it's not so straightforward because you also have to see at alternative ways that consumers and customers today fulfill potentially the same need, which is your indirect competition. And third, try to resist the temptation to reverse engineering the problem to fit the solution. Because when you start like this and you construct your customer persona on the basis of what your product does, you end up with a customer persona that may look fine on paper, but you have to challenge it as to how far and how much does it correspond to real people, real users in the market out there. Now, once you have arrived at your initial hypothesis, the second thing to do, build a prototype test. Testing is, probably know it, is a great way to get deeper understanding of the user, to assess the appeal and relevance of the idea, to optimize or even recreate it completely. Now, not all ideas would be easily converted in working prototypes. The important thing when testing is to be clear upfront on what hypothesis you need to test and to design accordingly. It's a different kind of prototype and testing you need if you want to test the core of the idea and the interest that exists about the core idea. And it's a different kind of test if you do usability and you want to understand functions, menus, wireframes, and so on and so forth. Testing gives you valuable first-hand understanding of the user, their attitudes, their motivations, which will be critical for the next steps. Which brings us to the final step of our kind of first phase, which is really sizing the price. Sizing the price is a critical step, and it's also very difficult. Done right, and it will give strength to your business proposal and a preliminary financial view of the opportunity. This is the kinds of things that investors are very interested in. It is often the case that at an early stage, startups don't have the data or the expert resources to arrive there, so there is a need for a helping hand. In principle, market will be defined and segmented in two ways, either top-down, starting from the total market size, the segments, then value the segments, then make a hypothesis about the target segments and their size and value, which is more of a business consultancy approach, or users up, which is when you start from specific user cases or customer personas, and then you try to project this in target user segments and then calculate the value in order, again, to arrive at a figure. Both cases are valid. The important thing is to be able to arrive to a rough estimate or less rough, depending on your resources, about the market, the size of the market, the percentage of the users, whatever can give some financial viability and some numbers in your proposition will put you in a better place. So you have a market, you have a customer, and you have a solution. Now it's time to encapsulate all that to a value proposition, which is the higher order value that your idea creates for the user. What is important to remember about value proposition is that it is a promise of help, and the hero of the value proposition is the user, not the product. This is part art, part science. It needs synthesis, it needs creativity. Both are very important there to arrive at a really, really good, strong, compelling value proposition. Let's look at some real-life examples. The smartest way to get around. Great writing, simplified. Accomplish more with better notes. Anyone, anywhere can start a business. Those are real value propositions from real successful brands. What do these value propositions share in common are three things. The first one is that they acknowledge known problems or desires of the user. Behind each of these value propositions, there is an acknowledgement of a need, of a problem, of something that wants to get done better, differently, or in a totally new way. The second is that they are short and sharp promises, promising to fulfill that problem or desire. And the third element is that somehow they highlight difference. Note the words smartest, simplified, better, anyone. They imply a better way of doing what they are promising better than the current alternative. accomplish something that is important to them. You lost me again.
Yeah, for a few
Yeah.
seconds we did.
Okay, where did you lose me?
Just on the last phrase.
Maybe if you close your camera, will be better.
Okay, let's give me. I'll do that. Okay. In short, I was saying a value proposition implies a better way for a customer type to accomplish something that is important to them. And this is important because people value things that enable them to become a better version of themselves by overcoming obstacles or discovering new benefits. People don't want to buy Swiss earrings, titanium hardware, or polyurethane wheels. They really want to be better skaters. They really want to go faster, to go further, to show off, to project their style. This is the kinds of things that people value. So when you're thinking your product in terms of a value proposition, consider this. Upgrade your user, not your product. Don't build better cameras, build better photographers. The next consideration is to create a brand that manifests your value proposition in a unique way. By saying brand, I mean the name, logo, visual identity of the offering, but not just that. Most importantly, we mean the deeper, higher level impact and vision that lies behind your promise. What kind of difference you want your idea to make in the world in the long run? What do you want to be known for? So let's hear what a guy that knows a little bit about brands has to say about the importance of branding. This is Jeff Bezos talking about Amazon.
Well, I think probably our most important piece of intellectual property is our brand name. And I think people, and I think this is very important for anybody who's going to start a company or market an invention to understand, is that brands for companies are like reputations for people. And reputations are hard-earned and easily lost. So the most important intellectual property that a company can have is, for us, it's Amazon. It's that name, but what it stands for. And we've worked very hard to earn trust. You can't ask for trust. You just have to do it the hard way, one step at a time. You make a promise and then fulfill the promise. You say, we'll deliver this to you, tomorrow, and then you actually deliver it tomorrow. And if you do that over and over again, then ultimately you can instill your company's name with a reputation. And that's, I think, sometimes people talk about brands in this very amorphous way, but for me, I like to think of it as a person, and what is the reputation that that person has, and how have they earned that reputation? Well,
So Bezos raises some very critical points about what the brand is and what the brand does. A brand is about creating trust and reputation, for standing for something that you do consistently and better than anyone else in the market. Remember, brand names are so expensive because they are shortcuts for trust. They command people's attention by building credibility in anything they sign off. Consider seeing a new product or a new service. In one case, from a totally new brand, you know nothing about it. In the other case, signed by Amazon. I mean, the second one, immediately being signed by Amazon, has a much bigger chance to get noticed, to get considered, because Amazon brand is a badge of trust. Amazon brand encapsulates everything that Amazon does and is, and it projects this kind of power to each item or service that it signs off. That's why brands are valuable, and that's why brands are very expensive. And this happens because a strong brand has 6 superpowers. A great brand will create and propel a virtuous circle that goes across and along everything a brand does. When it comes to client, a strong brand leads to a better net promoter score, which leads to more business. A strong brand creates loyalty, which reduces price elasticity. When it comes to prospect, it adds value to its offer and creates more leads, reducing the cost of acquisition while displaying a higher price. When it comes to people and employees, a strong brand reduces recruitment costs and multiplies employee engagement by 3, increasing their productivity by 50%. People want to work for great brands. It's proven time and again. When it comes to globalization, a strong brand allows an easier internationalization thanks to a better acquisition of awareness in the new market. It's just transference of fame and reputation. When it comes to uncertainty, a strong brand gives management time to react to the arrival of a newcomer, a delay in innovation, and so on and so forth. Because what trust creates, it also creates inertia, but it's a positive inertia. It's when people trust a brand, they will not very easily leave it to something else, depending on the category, of course. And when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, a strong target brand creates goodwill and facilitates the potential integration. So lots of assets of having a great brand. So even if you could,
Nico, a small interruption. I would like to see your face. You are so gentle and kind and, speaking over this, that I would prefer to have your face also.
yes,
I miss your
yes,
expression because I know that
yes.
you're expressive. So yes, that's it. So
Okay,
sorry,
good.
I want
No,
Nico's
it's
back.
okay. Thank you, Takis. Thank you.
All right.
So even if you currently feel that your idea is only starting and you're nowhere near Amazon or Google, remember this: your brand is the manifestation of your vision. It's your North Star for everything that follows. Great brands are not just products with a price tag. They occupy whole emotional and mental territories in people's minds, and these territories correspond to strong human needs. If you haven't yet figured out your brand vision, don't worry. Just make sure you have a good value proposition to start with and expand from there. Try to make it bigger, better, and we'll take you there. But just remember this: Amazon owns fulfillment. I mean, if you think about everything Amazon does in its experience, in its communication, in its assets, it's about fulfillment and how much and how strongly this was accelerated through COVID. Apple is about creativity. Everything you touch from Apple, product, services, communication, it's about creativity. The same for Google and knowledge. The same for Airbnb and immersion. And by saying immersion, I mean the promise of living like a local, because this is what Airbnb promises in reality as a user experience. Now, we'll close this by saying that the role of clear, compelling brand personality and communications is critical in the decisive startup phase, as this slide from McKinsey study shows very clearly. And this is because a compelling brand personality and communication will help your proposition cut through the clutter. Remember the battle of attention that we were discussing earlier. A strong PR will enable your proposition to connect and engage with the critical stakeholders in order to start building your reputation and your trust. And finally, a strong engagement online will build your sales leads and prospects, and eventually an early customer base that is important to go on. So building momentum and reputation is the final consideration to discuss. It won't make a big difference having a great business idea and a new brand if nobody knows about it. Getting people interested, building reputation and leads is critical. Let's see this in action through a case study of UiPath. The case study of UiPath is interesting because by default, they make something that is inherently complex, and I would also dare say boring. How do you make that into a compelling brand personality and communications? UiPath is a US software automation company specializing in something that is called robotic process automation, RPA. RPA deals with tasks like processing invoices and Excel files, moving data between Excel files and third-party apps, and sending emails. And companies like UiPath are leading the change with robotic process automation. Even in startup terms, UiPath story is a huge success story. They founded in 2005. It was the fastest growing IT company in history and has raised $1.1 billion in total funding, recently closing at 5,000 customers. In 2020, they were listed as number 3 on the Forbes Cloud 100 list. They are also an Ogilvy client, of course, Ogilvy US and Ogilvy Consulting US, and in collaboration with Ogilvy, they have created all the visual identity and these beautiful robots that somehow, try to make sense of how their technology works, but also their communications and the value proposition. Now, the value proposition of UiPath is about empowering people to focus on real productive work and problem solving by taking care all of the mundane and repetitive tasks. Their value proposition is founded in a very strong and truthful reality about today. The key pain point is that digital transformation, instead of making workers' lives easier and more productive, it actually has done the contrary. It created more processes, more forms, more platforms, more data entry. The end result for that, from the user's experience, is that work being focused on doing what people do best, which is solve problems and create solutions.
We lost you for a while. Could you please repeat from what actually happened with all this difficulty using the platforms?
Yes, the key difficulty, the key problem with digital transformation is instead of doing people's life more easy, it actually makes workers' life more easy. It actually makes more difficult and more mundane because workers waste more of their time and energy doing boring and repetitive things instead of being focused on doing what people do best, which solve problems and create solutions. So really the promise of UiPath, as it is encapsulated in Reboot Work, is that, and it's here given by the words of their chief brand officer, when the employees actually feel the technology, unburden them, when they have more time to focus on the real job, time to collaborate and time to innovate, they are delighted. This is the area that they want to play. So when time came to create a communication, they didn't want a TV communication. They didn't want to put just another commercial showing, the glass walled office visuals, the talking points about the product quality or the speeds and the kind of things that usually technology companies speak. What they wanted to highlight is that their message transcends the product. It's not about the technology for the sake of technology. It's about what happens when you unleash the potential in all people. And this is what the communication came.
Digital transformation has failed to take off because it hasn't removed the endless mundane work we all hate. Automation can solve that by taking on repetitive tasks for us. Unleash your potential. UiPath, Reboot Work.
So the same promise was consistently followed in the print, in the outdoor campaign of the company, and I have some samples here, with short and sharp claims highlighting the UiPath difference. Things like, we do the worst parts of your job so you can do the best parts of your job, or our robots do work only a robot could love, and means mundane and repetitive. In a nutshell, UiPath is a unique success story of a great technology becoming a strong value proposition translated to a brand vision and amplified through distinctive advertising, the kinds of things that we're talking about when it comes to startups. In Ogilvy, we have a framework organizing the steps to get you there, and it's called the Ogilvy racetrack, which is a blueprint of tasks and needs organized in 3 stages. The think part, which is about the strategic and marketing proposition scoping part, the create part, which is the stage of creating brand and communication assets and plan engagement, and the scale part, which is the stage of planning, rollout, and monitoring. This is a flexible route that can be customized depending on the needs and the stage of development of the client proposition. So no matter where you are, we can discuss and work through a customized plan for your business to grow. I would like to leave you with a final idea, and one that you have already guessed. Employing a marketing thinking early on will not only serve your business success in the long run, it will also enable you to pitch your idea better and sharper to potential investors. Let's see how this would look like. Now remember, investors usually look for 3 things. One is business potential, to understand whether there is a market need, a demand, opportunity, gap for the idea that they have been presented. The second is the idea robustness and feasibility, which is really about whether the solution has the potential to work, as we say. It's an actual solution that is feasible and viable to make. And the third one is the founder vision and personality, which is really the ambition, the drive, the personality of the person or the persons driving this idea forward, because these people will be their potential partners. So this format that I'm going to present you is a checklist and a roadmap to address all this on the basis of what we've discussed so far. So one thing we say, don't start with your product, start outside in. Start with a market gap, start with a customer need, start with a business opportunity. This builds tension, this generates interest, and this establishes that you understand your environment and the market. Then pitch your value proposition, pitch your promise. What is that you enable the user to do better, more, and most importantly, differently, because this is what makes your proposition distinctive. Third, explain how does it work, the features, the mechanics, the innovations, the nuts and bolts that will enable you to bring this promise to life. Do this briefly, unless your audience wants to know more about it. And I'm saying this only in order to not get lost into the details of how and miss the big idea. Then share your vision. This is your vision, the founder vision. If your idea went really big, what kind of impact could it have in the world? What kind of reputation you want to build? What is the area that you want to occupy and be known for? And finally, have some first thoughts of how would you start bringing it to life? Who would you like to access first? What are the critical stakeholders, communities, prospects that will help you get traction and start building trust and reputation? Thank you and good luck in your endeavors. Happy pitching with a marketing mindset.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kalaskanis. It was very interesting and insightful. Very nice presentation. And I would like to ask our audience if they have any questions, if there is anything that they want to ask. I think now is a great opportunity to actually ask Ogilvy and get their input on any marketing questions you might have. You can write it on the chat, or you can raise your hand. You can do a reaction, and then we're gonna open up the microphones for you. Otherwise, we also have some questions that they were created while you were presenting, Mr. Kalaskanis. So I can go ahead before we have any other questions. One of them is, imagine if I am leading a startup, right? And then I do not have a distribution channel yet.
Yep.
Would you say that it makes sense for me to start communicating and start like using marketing to promote my products, even though I do not really have a product on the shelf yet? Or is it better to establish it after I have my distribution channel on place?
It depends. It depends on what's your objective. I mean, if you wanted to get to understand how your idea might gel with people, might attract interest, and what kind of people you would attract, you may start a campaign because you want to understand from the kinds of people and reactions that you're getting whether you attract attention and to what kinds of user personas. This is like testing in a sense. And in some cases, it is done also as A/B testing. I mean, you have two value proposition or different benefits, and you run them as campaigns digitally in order to see and be able to assess which one works best for the kind of audience that you're looking for. This is one condition in which you would go to market things, even if you do not have a distribution channel. The other thing is to market very targeted, in a very targeted way, not to potential customers, but to potential stakeholders that can help you get the idea to the market, which is really more of a, it's more of a PR thing, or more of, finding your way, figuring out who these people or these communities are, and finding a way to connect with them, whether physically, digitally, in events, by communication, and so on and so forth. So it really depends on the objective. You could do it. Yeah.
Okay. We have some questions on the chat now, so I'm going to start with the first one. The question is, how large should a pitch deck be? I'm guessing that this is for an investor pitching, though. I'm not sure if it's exactly what, or do they refer to something different?
Can you say it again, Lena? Because I didn't.
The question is, how large should a pitch deck be?
By large, I think he means long in terms of duration and. Yeah. I will always say short. I mean, the last slide that I show you. I mean, if you have definite answers on these questions, you can do it in 30 seconds as an elevator pitch. I mean, the problem is this. This is what we promised to do it. This is the innovation for doing it. Our vision is to own the territory of mobility, and the first stakeholders that we want to engage is this, and that community in order to become bigger. This is 30 seconds, but to reach to this 30 seconds takes a lot of work. In principle, I would say that try to learn as much as possible about your audience before you're pitching, because there are kinds of investors that are more interested in the vision and the passion and the greatness of the thing, even if it's not properly researched. Focusing on the how it works.
We lost your last phrase. I'm sorry.
Saying there are different kinds of investors. Some are inspired by the big idea and the vision, even if the detail is not yet, great. Some others are inspired by the technical prowess. So they make lots of technical questions. So the better you know your audience, the best, I think, for pitching.
Okay. Then moving on, because we have a couple of questions actually. The question from Panayotis is that startups usually have limited financial resources and they strive to generate revenues, especially if they're being launching a new product category that awareness is absent. Are there affordable ways to reach or create a market? Does Ogilvy have products or programs for startups? That would be definitely huge opportunity cost, according to him.
It's a valid question, and I would say to you quite frankly that we do not have a specific program geared to startups. We are always willing to talk and discuss. I mean, but to be honest, I mean, we have to understand if the intention is there, what kind of resources are available, and what kinds of funding, and we can then make an informed decision with the owner whether the kinds of objectives that they have can correspond or be achieved with the kind of budget that they have. But because really, it's always a trade-off,
Okay, but would you say that there are affordable ways to reach or to create a market, or is it always costly?
It depends what you mean affordable. Affordable is 5,000, 30,000, 100,000. I mean, it depends.
Okay. Anna, you can come up with a second question if you're not covered with this one. Then a question from Mariana is, what do you think the best approach would be for introducing your brand to potential clients when you're a consulting service company, assuming you're a newbie in the market and you haven't built a reputation yet? So we have a consulting service company, and the question is, what is the best approach to introduce your brand?
The best approach to introduce two things. If you're a consulting service company, I assume that you have a specialization in consulting. I mean, consulting is very broad. If you start as a company in consulting, because consulting is very broad, you have to figure out or identify in which area or in which angle or in which expertise of consulting you're going to aim first. Because if you are small, you probably do not have the resources to build the reputation that a big generic consultant has. Because to do this, you have to be all over the place. You have to do thought leadership, you have to have the resources, you have to have LinkedIn, you have to talk to the right people, you have to talk about different kinds of industries. It's huge. So my one advice would be choose the area of consulting where you feel you are stronger and more differentiated, and focus on that to start building reputation, building case studies, and building a proof of concept, and then take it from there. Don't go to everybody at once because it's not going to happen.
Okay.
And if I may suggest, also be extrovert.
Yeah.
Try to be where the possible investors, possible clients are. Big meetings, big webinars, big associations, when they organize stuff, so they can see you, they can listen to you, you can exchange some views. Be extrovert. Some PR would be very appropriate, especially in the beginning.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Then the next question is from Manos, and he's wondering, so he's saying that we said that the most important aspect of a company's IP is its brand name. However, a startup did not have the chance to yet build a strong brand name since it's very new in the market. What would be a viable strategy to pitch your product without initially relying on your brand?
Have a value proposition. But
Okay.
that's why I put the steps in a sequence. I mean, we know that most startups will not have a brand yet. To build a brand and scale a brand, it's something like a second step. I mean, the basic thing of a brand, when you commercialize, you will do, which means a logo, a visual identity, a name. That's the design elements, if you like. But even if you're not there, when you pitch, make sure that you have a value proposition, you have a promise. You do something important for a specific kind of customer, and you do this in a different and distinctive way, and show them how. If you
Focus on
establish
your
that,
USP.
if you establish that, then you can build a brand.
Okay. Then we have a question from Nikos, and he's saying that when it comes to marketing for a marketplace app startup, should one target end users or customers? So it's a marketplace app startup.
Marketplace app startup means, if I'm not mistaken, that your business model has two components. One component is having customers B2B in, and you get revenue from them from being featured in your platform selling services. And user is actually attracting people to visit in the customer in the platform in order to buy these services. The examples that I know do both. In order to be able to have a beta proposition in the market, I think my view says that you should at least engage some customers or interested customers in order for your marketplace to have actual content for people to look for. It doesn't make sense to invite users in if they come in and they see nothing. If they see five suppliers, they will come once and they will never come again. So usually there is a beta version that precedes the official launch where you try to seed or create, a very basic marketplace, with some specific, at least some specific kind of customers or some specific expertise embedded in order to be able to then go to end users and be able to operate as a marketplace.
Then we'll have a question from Anastasia. First of all, she's thanking you a lot for the presentation. And she's wondering that when the product is developed based on existing customers' feedback, they identified the need. How would the strategy plan and pitching process differentiate from what we heard today? I'm not sure if I posed the question correctly. Did you get the question?
Yes, but
Okay, perfect.
I just think that, as I said, there are two ways. Usually there are two ways how ideas are generated. One is coming from the user app. So you identify the user have a specific needs, you find a way to engage with them, and you understand what the need is, and you develop a solution and they like it. So this is from the user's app. So it's a user and a problem looking for a solution. You understand the user, you empathize, you build a solution. And the other way is from the product down. So you have an innovation, a technology, and you're looking for a market. Both are valid, but at some point you have to connect the two. So in essence, it doesn't differentiate in terms of approach from what I've shown, because what I said in the beginning is that either way, whether you start from the user or you start from the technology, in as much as you have the marketing mindset and you have done your homework to how these two are connecting, how your solution corresponds to a real consumer need, it doesn't matter if it started from the consumer or from the technology.
Okay. And we have one more question from Vasilios. And he's saying that in the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned the example with Steve Jobs regarding information and how not so many, like you shouldn't throw all the balls at the same time. And he's saying that in his mind, that translates into products as well, that if they're about to create something, it should rather be one or two other than 8. And the question is, if he understood correctly, that he should refer to more people, customers with 8 different products than with 2. Would it make sense, I guess, to refer to more people, to more customers with 8 different products than with 2?
I don't think, I do not know if you have the resources or the energy to actually develop 8 products. And can you still hear me? I understood that I paused.
Okay.
What I was saying is that I'm not sure whether you have the resources to develop 8 products and the time, and whether this is an efficient way to use your energy and creativity rather than trying to focus on 3 or 4 and then narrow down. I mean, if you have a global innovation hub and you are Nestlé, you are testing 100 ideas per year, but you're Nestlé, you have the resources to do that and a whole department. And you are actually betting that out of these 100 ideas, there will be 1 or 2 ideas that will be so successful that will make up for all the loss that the other 98 will do. But if you are small and starting up, I don't know how easy it is to actually follow this mindset.
Okay. Everybody's thanking you a lot for your answers as well. If we do not have any further questions, if there's something, please type it now. And I think we can wrap up this webinar. I would like to thank you so much, Mr. Kalaskanis and Ms. Belibassaki, for your input and for your presence. We really
Thank you.
appreciate your time. It was very insightful, I think, for everyone that watched and participated. And everyone is thanking you on the chat as well. Thank you everyone for watching and for participating. If you have any further questions, of course, you can send it to us and then we're going to forward it to Ogilvy. And when they have the time, they can come back with a nice answer for you. I just want to let you know that we have one more event coming up next week, which is going to be in collaboration with the National Documentation Center. It's going to be a hybrid event about upskilling and reskilling, which we think is a very hot topic and it's going to be very, very interesting as well. So we're going to send out the invitation soon. Sign up for that one as well. And thank you again for joining. Everyone is thanking us. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Kalaskanis, a lot. It was very, very nice having you.
Our pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much. Thank
Bye,
you.
bye, bye.
Again.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.